Theodore and Hank were bringing a cargo ship named Catherine into the big harbor. Theodore was the tug in charge. That meant he was up in front, leading the way and giving the orders. Theodore always felt important when he was the tug in charge. Theodore gave 2 stern blasts of his whistle to warn Hank he was about to start turning. "Why, that is the cutest little whistle," said Catherine. "My whistle isn't cute or little," said Theodore. "My whistle is fresh," suggested Hank. It was the only word he could think of just then. Well, by the time they reached the dock, Theodore had a big frown. After all, he was an important tug in charge, and he didn't think an important tug in charge should have a cute little whistle. After he had finished moving Catherine, Theodore couldn't stop thinking about his whistle. That was Emily's whistle. Now to Theodore, Emily's whistle always sounded confident. It seemed to say, "I'll handle this." Theodore cleared his smokestack and blew his best whistle. But to Theodore, his whistle said, "Ordinary." "My whistle isn't good enough," he thought. Theodore wanted his own special whistle. He decided to make his whistle sound just like Emily's. Theodore blew and blew his whistle, trying to make it sound confident like Emily's. "What do you think?" he said. "Well," Emily wondered why Theodore was making that strange sound. "I think you should go to the repair yards," she said. "There may be something stuck in your smokestack." Not long after, Theodore spied Foduck passing by on his harbor safety patrol. Foduck whistled to let everyone know he was on the job. To Theodore, Foduck's whistle sounded very serious. It said, "I'm doing important things." Theodore decided that maybe his whistle should sound like Foduck's. Theodore blew and blew, trying to make his whistle sound serious and important. "Bat!" cried Foduck. "It sounds like there's a giant bat in the harbor. I better warn everyone." "Did he say my whistle sounded like a bat?" frowned Theodore. Hank was just getting ready to pull Bobby Barge when Theodore came floating along. Hank let out a loud whistle as he got underway. Now to Theodore, Hank's whistle sounded larger than life. "I'm ready for anything," it seemed to say. And Theodore decided that maybe his whistle should sound more like Hank's. "Hank, wait a minute," he called. Theodore blew, and he blew his whistle, trying to make it sound larger than life. "Well," asked Theodore, after he had finished whistling for Hank, "what do you think of my new whistle? Is it bigger or just better?" Hank looked blank. But then, seeing how discouraged Theodore looked, he said, "It's bigger and better. It's bitter. No, it's butter. It sounds fresh." Theodore continued along his way home when he saw George moving Owen the oil rig. Well, George gave a bumper-rattling blast with his whistle. To Theodore, George's whistle sounded big and brash and bold. It announced to all the world, "Make way for me." George has the very best whistle of all, thought Theodore. So Theodore decided to make his whistle sound just like George's. Theodore took his windiest breath, made his best whistling face, puckered his lips, and let out all his air with a great whoosh. The big harbor shook with the mighty sound of nothing. Not a sound. Not a peep. Not even a little bird's tweet. Theodore had worn out his whistle. That afternoon, the tugboats were gathered at the great ocean dock. The dispatcher was about to make a surprise announcement.
Tugboats,
The dispatcher began.
this afternoon a very special guest is arriving in our harbor. The great ocean liner, the Queen Stephanie.
The tugs were thrilled to hear this. The Queen Stephanie was the grandest ocean liner in the world. She visited the harbor every now and then. And when she did, it was always a special event.
Everyone shipshape?
Asked the dispatcher. The tugs all whistled. Yes, sir. One by one. All except Theodore.
Theodore,
Said the dispatcher.
all shipshape?
I can't whistle, Theodore said in a voice the dispatcher could hardly hear. Well, the dispatcher said nothing for the longest moment. And then he turned so that only Theodore could hear. Theodore, tugs must have whistles if they want to work. No, I'm sorry, but I can't send you out with the other tugs to bring in the Queen Stephanie today. Well, Theodore knew the dispatcher was right, but it didn't make it any easier. He wanted to help bring in the Queen more than anything. The other tugboats set off to meet the Queen Stephanie. Soon a mighty horn was heard, echoing across the water. Theodore could see all the other tugs greeting the Queen without him. It all started because I didn't like my whistle, Theodore thought sadly. And now, I don't have any whistle at all. The sun had almost set by the time the tugs finished bringing in the Queen Stephanie. They returned to the great ocean dock, tired but excited, and talking loudly about the Queen. She really is the nicest ship, said Emily. She's so kind.
Very modern.
Said Photo.
Very big.
Trumpeted George. Very fresh, exclaimed Hank. Well, that was the only word he could think of, and it sounded great. Hearing how wonderful it all was just made Theodore feel even worse about missing his chance to bring in the great ship. Emily floated quietly over to Theodore. The Queen Stephanie was asking about you, she said. She was? Said Theodore. What did she want? What did she say? What did you tell her? Oh, tell me, Emily. She asked me where you were, said Emily. She did? Said Theodore. Yes, continued Emily. I think you should go over and say hello. Do you think it's okay? Said Theodore. Sure, replied Emily. Even though you can't work without your whistle, you can still visit. A little later, Theodore set off to see the Queen Stephanie. It was dark by now. The harbor lights were winking all around him. Why was the Queen asking about me? Theodore wondered. The closer Theodore got to the Queen Stephanie, the louder his heart seemed to pound. He was sure the whole harbor could hear it. And then he saw her. Theodore couldn't help but gasp out loud. Oh, what a sight she was. Her lights reflected in the water, and she swayed slightly in the nighttime tide so that she seemed to be suspended in the sky itself. To Theodore, oh, she looked like a great floating palace. Theodore, said the Queen, surprised, I'm very glad to see you. I missed you today. When Theodore heard this, he felt sad. I'm sorry I couldn't help bring you in, he said. But, well, you see, I wore out my whistle. Wore out your whistle? Said the Queen. Oh, that really is too bad. Your whistle is so bright and cheerful, just like you are. It is? Said Theodore. I mean, I am? Theodore frowned a little. I didn't think you even noticed my whistle. Oh, I most certainly do, said the Queen. Even when I can't see tugboats buttoned on way below me, I can always hear their whistles and tell exactly who they are by their sound. Oh, every tugboat has their own special whistle. Even Me? Said Theodore. Oh, I should say so, said the Queen brightly. Your whistle is the most special thing about you. My whistle? Said Theodore. Of course, replied the Queen. Your whistle always makes me smile. Well, Theodore was silent. He was thinking about everything the Queen was saying. And somehow, just hearing her words made him feel much better about his whistle. I'm sure you'll get your whistle back soon, said the Queen. It just needs a little rest. And so do I, she yawned. It's getting late. Good night, Theodore. Good night, said Theodore. Theodore headed home, taking his time. It had seemed like a magical night, and he didn't want it to end just yet. The Queen, Stephanie, really was the nicest ship. It seemed she always knew just the right thing to say. Had she really said that his whistle was bright and cheerful and that it made her smile? I guess my whistle is special, Theodore thought. The night was clear and starry, and there was a gentle tang of salt sea air in the breeze. And Theodore felt happy. Then softly, so softly, he took a breath and let out a small, sweet, wonderful whistle. His good old Theodore whistle. And he just had to smile. Carla was a spunky little cabin cruiser. She didn't work, and she was always on holiday, going wherever she liked, whenever she liked. And when she got there, she could do whatever she liked. One morning, just before the work meeting, Carla came over to the Great Ocean dock. Now, it was unusual for another boat to be there for the meeting, but Carla wasn't shy. Hi, I'm Carla, she said. Hi, Carla, said Emily. I'm Emily, and this is Foduck. Hello, Carla, said Foduck. 4 ducks, said Carla. Okay. Quack, 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 quack. I don't find that funny, said Foduck. But Emily laughed. I get it, she said. 4 ducks. Actually, it's Foduck, said Foduck with a frown. My name's George, puffed the largest tug. Nice to meet you, Georgie Porgy, laughed Carla. Said George. Georgie Porgy, said Emily. That's funny. And this is Hank. Hello, Honk, said Carla. Hi, laughed Hank. Honk, repeated Emily, laughing. Carla, you're so funny. Thanks, said Carla. I'm Theodore, said Theodore. And everyone waited to see what Carla would say about his name. Hello, Theodore. Nice to meet you, said Carla. I hope you don't turn out to be a bore. Be a bore? Said Emily, and she laughed along with Theodore and Hank. It's so cool, the way you make up such great jokes, said Emily. Carla the cool cabin cruiser, that's me, said Carla. I've been all over the world, you know. But so have I, said Emily. Cool, said Carla. Let's hang around together. We could be pals. Great, said Emily, excitedly, and the two began to race their engines. Well, just then, the dispatcher turned to begin the meeting. The tugs were glad that the dispatcher didn't seem to mind Carla being there, especially Emily. See, Emily thought Carla was just the kind of friend she'd always wanted. Funny, smart, and so cool. Good morning, said the dispatcher. Only 2 jobs today. Foduck, I'd like you to inspect some fire equipment on Rebecca, the research vessel. Yes, sir, replied Foduck. George, Theodore, and Hank, continued the dispatcher. I'd like you all to bring a big container ship in. There may be a storm coming, and I don't want anything to go wrong. Then the dispatcher turned to Emily. Emily, he continued, I'll need you if we have bad weather this afternoon, but I don't have anything for you to do this morning. Great, said Emily. Thank you, sir.
And listen closely to your radios, he said to the tugs. When the storm comes, I want all boats back to their docks. He looked meaningfully at Carla. Even cabin cruisers, he said. Is that clear?
Yes, sir, said the others as the dispatcher turned away.
Yes, Mr. Dishwasher,
called Carla. The tugs looked up quickly, but luckily the dispatcher hadn't heard Carla. I can't believe you called him the dishwasher, said Emily. Then she laughed. You, Mr. Dishwasher. The other tugs said goodbye and started out to do their jobs. Emily stayed behind, still chuckling and feeling very silly. Isn't it great? I have the whole morning off, she said to Carla. Yeah, said Carla. Let's go look at the really deep place where the biggest ships come in. Okay, said Emily. But we'll have to remember that getting too close to the path where the big ships come in can be very dangerous. Oh, I know, said Carla. But it'll be exciting. Well, when they arrived at the deepest part of the harbor, they stopped. In the distance, they could see George, Theodore, and Hank getting ready to bring the big container ship in. Now, the big ships have one path to come into the harbor on, and they can't steer away from it, or even slow down if another boat gets in their way. And that path is marked with a row of marker buoys on either side. Cool, said Carla. Let's cross over to the other side. Oh, we're not allowed to cross in front of a ship that's coming in, said Emily. Oh, come on, said Carla. She's so far away. And with that, Carla scooted right across the path. Come on, Emily, called Carla from the other side. Emily looked carefully. The container ship was still pretty far away. Are you a scaredy cat or what? Yelled Carla. Now, Emily knew that she shouldn't cross that path, but she really wanted to be Carla's friend. And she figured that, well, there was time to do it safely. So, with one last look, she darted across. Cool, said Carla when Emily got there. Wasn't that exciting? Well, Emily wasn't sure it felt good at all. She could feel her engine pounding. Hey, said Carla, let's go to Rocky Point. I don't know, Carla, said Emily. Rocky Point is pretty far away. But there are these really cool rocks there, said Carla. I'd better check with the dispatcher first, said Emily. Oh, come on, said Carla. Rocky Point isn't that far. Just the other side of the bend past the oil refinery. And if we go now, we can cut in front of the container ship again. Emily looked along the path to the container ship. The ship was a lot closer now. Emily knew that a small boat darting across the path of a big ship could cause a bad accident that could hurt everyone, even the tugs on the job. No, she exclaimed. It's not safe anymore. Oh, you're so boring, cried Carla. Who'd want to be your friend anyway? Then Carla dashed across, right in front of the container ship. She missed the big ship by seconds. Emily heard a loud honk from the container ship. And angry voices from the others. Hey, watch it, said George. Yes, watch it, said Hank. She called me boring. I'm not boring, thought Emily. I should just go meet Carla and prove it. It's the only way I'll ever convince her to be my friend again. And Emily set off. But after thinking about it a while, she stopped. She liked Carla a lot. She was fun and fun to be with. The most exciting boat Emily had ever met. But following her to Rocky Point without asking the dispatcher would mean going against orders. Theodore saw Emily and came out to meet her. Hey, Emily, he called. Haven't you been listening to your radio? Emily had to admit that she hadn't. The harbor is going to be closed because the storm is coming, said Theodore. Emily hoped Carla had heard that. Come on, said Theodore. All boats are supposed to return to the docks.
Theodore, am I boring? No, laughed Theodore. Who called you that? Carla, answered Emily. Oh, don't worry about that, said Theodore. You're a really good tugboat. Come on, let's go. Okay, said Emily, a little sadly. Emily took one last look towards Rocky Point, and then followed Theodore in. The tugs started getting ready for the storm, making sure that everything was tied down. I hope we see some interesting lightning, said Vodok. What I like best is the thunder, said Hank. Are you looking forward to the storm, Emily? Asked Theodore. Not really, said Emily. Storms are boring. Boring like me. Well, that didn't sound like Emily at all. The tugs knew that something must be bothering her. But before they could say anything, the dispatcher turned to them. Carla, the cabin cruiser, is missing, he announced. She wanted me to go with her to Rocky Point, said Emily. Maybe she's run into some kind of trouble near there. You and Theodore go down there right away and look for her before the storm comes, said the dispatcher. Yes, sir, said Emily. And off they went. Well, when the tugs arrived at Rocky Point, there was no sign of Carla. Well, where can she be? Asked Theodore. I don't know, said Emily. But feel that wind. Storm is getting closer. Then, just as they were leaving Rocky Point, Theodore happened to look out to the ocean. Hey, that looks like Carla, he exclaimed. What's she doing way out there? I don't know, said Emily. There's no place for a boat like her in a storm. And the two tugs chugged straight out to the open water. Theodore was nervous and a little excited to be so close to the wide open ocean, especially in a storm. Emily chugged determinedly right up to Carla. What are you doing out here? Emily called. Didn't you hear the radio warnings? I did, answered Carla. She sounded scared. And I left Rocky Point right away, but then I wasn't sure which way to turn. Well, come on, said Emily. I can't move, said Carla. Why not? Asked Theodore. I'm afraid of the storm, replied Carla. At that very moment, there was a big crack of thunder from somewhere behind the tugs. Oh, said Carla. Didn't you hear that? Aren't you scared too? Sure, sometimes, said Theodore, but we just know that, well, we have to be extra careful around dangerous things. Then Emily had an idea. Carla, she said, hold onto our tow ropes. We'll pull you to safety. Are you sure you can? Asked Carla nervously. Of course we can, said Emily. We're tugboats. Pulling boats is what we do best. As soon as Carla felt the strong, solid tug of the two tow ropes, well, she felt a lot better. Wow, she said. Cool. Tugboats really are cool. Thank you, said Emily. You're still pretty cool yourself. Carla laughed. She sounded much more like her old self. Oh, I'm not cool, she said. I'm cold. Let's go home, pal. Okay, pal, said Emily with a big smile.